Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast. I'm Simon Marks in Washington, D.C. and these are the top headlines on this very busy Monday. Talks are underway between Ukrainian and border with Belarus. The Kremlin refused to declare its position ahead of the dialogue, and some European officials say they're not optimistic about the talks' outcome. Ukrainian Zelensky demands immediate EU membership for his country and soldiers to lay down their arms. The United Nations secured a rare emergency special session of the full generalist Western allies step up their diplomatic campaign to isolate Moscow. The weekend curfew in Kiev is lifted. Residents of the Ukrainian capital were allowed to leave their underground shelters. Students were advised to make their way to railway stations and begin an onward journey to the western region of the country. At least 350 civilians, including 14 children, have been killed, and more than 500,000 people have fled Ukraine since Russia launched its invasion 5 days ago. The United Nations is warning the death toll could be much higher. The Kremlin responds to a barrage of sanctions against Russia by the West. Moscow says Russia will be able to ride them out, even as citizens clamour to pull their money out of Russian banks. President Putin has been meeting his top officials to discuss the economic impact. And the United States toughens its stance against Russia's ally Belarus. Washington is suspending all operations at its embassy in the capital, Minsk.
Дед живой, все нормально.
Стреляли мы.
It is day 5 of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Currently, all major Ukrainian cities remain under the control of the Ukrainian government. But intense fighting is underway in many parts of the country. Let's take a look at the latest Russian advance on Ukraine. As you can see, Moscow launched its attack from 3 main directions: the north, the south and the east. The areas marked in red on the map are where Russia has made gains over the last 5 days. However, the main battle is on for the Ukrainian capital of Kiev. A bulk of Russian forces still remain situated nearly 30 kilometers from the city, but analysts suggest the Russian progress has been slow, bogged down, some officials in the West claim, by rising disquiet about the conflict among the ranks. Ukraine says Russia's advance has been slowed by forces defending Hostomel airfield. According to the UK, logistical failures and staunch resistance are stalling the Russian advance. In Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, there have been reports of heavy fighting, reports of street fighting and explosions in the city. But on Sunday, Ukraine said the Russian attack had been repelled. While major cities are still holding up, Moscow has made massive gains in the south of the country, Kiev acknowledging that the Black Sea city of Berdyansk had fallen, along with Kherson, located on the other side of Crimea. Currently, Moscow has now almost forged a corridor along the Black Sea, linking Crimea with Donetsk in the east, which is, of course, a rebel-held area. In Ukraine, more than 350 civilians have been killed, including 14 children, and Russia, for the first time, has acknowledged that it too has suffered losses. All of this comes as President Volodymyr Zelensky says the next 24 hours will be crucial for his country. Russia's currency, the ruble, has crashed to a record low against the US dollar as the country's financial system reels under crushing Western sanctions. The ruble has now lost more than 30% of its value, though at one point it was trading 40% lower. $1 now equals 109 rubles. The collapse in the currency's value erodes its buying power and threatens to wipe out the savings of ordinary Russian citizens. Trading on the Russian stock market was first delayed, then it got cancelled entirely today. There were long queues for Russian ATMs and money exchanges throughout the weekend. Russia has more than doubled its interest rate to 20% in a central bank bid to halt the currency's slump and maintain some sense of financial stability. Russian citizens are worried their bank cards may soon stop working or face limits on the amounts of cash they can withdraw. The latest barrage of Western sanctions imposed on Saturday is aimed at paralysing the assets of Russian banks. Over the weekend, the United States, the EU, the UK and Canada cut off Russia's banks from financial markets in the West, prohibiting dealings with the central bank, state-owned investment funds and the finance ministry. They also said they would expel some of the Russian banks from SWIFT. That's the key international payment system. Russia is a leading exporter, of course, of oil and gas, but many other sectors of its economy rely on imports. As the value of the ruble falls, those imported items will become much more expensive to buy, and that will eventually push the country's rate of inflation up. The crackdown on leading banks and the exclusion of some of them from the SWIFT network will also make it much harder for Russia to sell its exports. Earlier, we spoke with Morgan Furt-Malka. She is a political analyst from Paris, and she offered these thoughts on the ongoing talks between Russia and Ukraine and the impact of sanctions on Moscow.
My expectations are not really high because we're seeing that all the diplomatic activity that is going on right now is a little bit cosmetic, and it is not even symbolic. It is cosmetic. It is in order to have some talking points for one's own audience. The real battle and the real work right now is going on at the informational level. It is the informational war that is going on. And all of the diplomatic activity, the talks that are going on, they are just a way for each side to have a narrative to offer to their audience in the context of this informational war. The Russian leadership right now is minimizing the impact of sanctions, but we have already seen that the Russian economy is collapsing. It has been slowly falling for the past years, as in the same measure as Russia has been isolating itself. But now the assessment from insiders and from my contacts within Russia is that this is going to be, unfortunately, a long and slow death. This is a very terrible situation Russia is finding itself in, and I think that the Russian leadership, not counting Putin, is very aware of that, and this is why we've seen that other members of the Russian establishment have been really nervous about what's going on, because they understand that this latest move by Putin to invade Ukraine amounts to a suicide for the Russian economy. This has always been a big topic in European politics, and it has been a dividing theme, dividing European countries and dividing Europeans among themselves within countries. Until recently, it was a legitimate debate. Should we impose sanctions, given that it's going to have an impact on ourselves, on our producers, on our markets, on our consumers. We are now in a different paradigm. There has been a paradigmatic change. We were in times of relative peace. Some people were saying unpeace, but there was still the word peace in it. Now we are at a time of war, and we should take this very seriously. And it is, I think it's going to become more and more unacceptable not to impose sanctions, even in the areas in which Europe has much to lose.
The European Union has announced severe additional sanctions against Russia over its invasion of Ukraine, along with taking the unprecedented step of financing and delivering arms to Ukraine. The bloc will close its airspace to all Russian aircraft. It aims to spend €450 million on weapons for Ukraine. That's over $500 million, and a further €50 million will be devoted to humanitarian assistance, including medical supplies.
For the first time ever, the European Union will finance the purchase and delivery of weapons and other equipment to a country that is under attack.
And EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen also said the EU is closing its airspace to all Russian aircraft, including the private jets of Russian oligarchs. The 27-nation bloc will also ban Russian state media outlets broadcasting throughout the European Union. It means that the Kremlin's television network, RT, and news agency and radio station Sputnik will go off air across the EU. Von der Leyen said this was to render them unable to spread their lies to justify Putin's war.
First, we are shutting down the EU airspace for Russians. We're proposing a prohibition on all Russian-owned, Russian-registered and Russian-controlled aircraft. These aircraft will no more be able to land in, take off, or overfly the territory of the European Union.
Targeting Russian ally Belarus, the EU will impose sanctions on it for facilitating the Russian invasion. A ban on imports of products from mineral fuels to tobacco, wood and timber, cement, iron and steel is to be imposed. The EU will also target Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko personally for supporting Russia's widespread military campaign in Ukraine.
Они на контакт даже не выходят. Так не рассматривают даже. И даже то, что нам не сказали.
Meanwhile, Ukrainians are clear about one thing, that they will never surrender to the Russian onslaught, come what may. So civilians who have never had a day of military training in their lives are now signing up to fight the Russians.
With the Russian invasion into Ukraine, every able-bodied man in the age group of 18 to 60 has been called to fight and protect the sovereignty of Ukraine. Ever since Russian tanks rolled into the Ukrainian borders, the number of people signing up to join the Ukrainian Territorial Defense Force has shot up. Most of these people training on the outskirts of Fastep had never held a weapon in their life. But now they're prepared to lay down their lives.
We were attacked by Russia a long time ago. The war is ongoing already for 8 years. We are defending our home. That's why now those simple guys here became reservists. They have patriotic Cossack spirits. They know what to do and they are going to stop the enemy. Glory to Ukraine.
According to reports, Russian troops have been slowed down by the stout Ukrainian resistance, fuel shortages and other logistical problems. But these conscripts want the West to chip in with some help. The battle for Ukraine, they say, is a battle to protect peace in the whole of Europe.
Even the smallest aid is helpful for us. It doesn't matter if it would be a weapon or an equipment. I want to thank all the people. They gathered to help, organize checkpoints and sacrifice their vehicles, everything, including their time. They leave their houses to their kids while they fill soil in buckets. They understand everything, but nobody expected this dump would get here.
Kiev has been eerily quiet after huge explosions and missile strikes in the last 5 days. Most other cities across Ukraine had also imposed strict curfew to crack down on infiltrators. The conscripts are hoping that the war must end soon. But one thing they're certain about is they're not going back home till Russian tanks pull out of Ukraine. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
One bit of breaking news that we've just received. The Swiss government says it is adopting the EU sanctions package on Russia and will respect and enforce the same sanctions that the European Union has announced. That's a huge move because Switzerland, of course, traditionally remains neutral at all times in all conflicts. So this is a fresh indication of the outrage that has spread throughout Europe, sparked by the invasion of Ukraine ordered by Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Swiss say they will adopt and implement the EU sanctions on Russia. Now the impact of the crisis in Ukraine on the world of tech. Facebook's parent company, Meta, says it has uncovered a Russian hacking campaign against the Ukrainian military, the government, and journalists on its platform.
Facebook owner Meta Platforms said a hacking group used the social media website to target a handful of public figures in Ukraine, including prominent military officials, politicians, and a journalist. It also said it had separately removed a network of about 40 fake accounts, groups, and pages across Facebook and Instagram, targeting people in Ukraine for violating its rules against coordinated, inauthentic behaviour. In a blog post on Monday, Meta attributed the hacking efforts to a group known as Ghostwriter, which it said successfully gained access to the target's social media accounts. Meta's security team said it had taken steps to secure targeted accounts and had blocked the phishing domains used by the hackers. It declined to give the names of any of the targets, but said it had alerted users where possible. A spokesperson for Twitter said it had also suspended more than a dozen accounts and blocked the sharing of several links for violating its rules against platform manipulation and spam. The crisis in Ukraine has seen escalating clashes between Moscow and big tech. On Friday, Russia said it would partially restrict access to Facebook. Twitter also said its service was being restricted for some Russian users on Saturday.
The rage against Russian aggression only seems to be growing. Demonstrations were held across the globe, from Washington, D.C. here in the US to Erbil in Iraq. We are going to leave you today with some of those visuals. I'll be back at the same time, same place tomorrow with all the latest news on Ukraine right here on WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. And stay with WION for every development in this crisis. World is One.
This is right, Arab.